Riot finally decided to bite the bullet and say, hey, these agents, we're just not going to deal with them that much anymore. And the proof is really coming from the most recent patch, patch 0.11, where Corrode came out, because there was some agent changes in here as well. They weren't very consequential overall, but if we take a look in particular at the changes to Reyna and Phoenix, what you'll notice about these changes to Reyna and Phoenix is that they are nerfs. Now, that is quite interesting because at Masters Toronto, those two agents had a 1% pick rate, and so clearly they aren't being really a problem in pro play, so why are they nerfing them? And I know what you're already thinking, well, CMB, it's because those agents are good in ranked. That's why Riot are nerfing those agents, but that is a big swing from how they have generally gone about balancing agents in the past. But yes, there are some instances in the past where Riot has gone, okay, this agent is too strong in ranked, we need to nerf them. A good example of that is when Clove was first coming out, and, you know, Clove's ranked win rate was really exceptionally high, and so Riot decided, okay, we do need to nerf Clove, despite the fact, again, that Clove wasn't really seeing a ton of play in pro play, so it's not like they have never done this before. But if we go back in time and think about Phoenix and Reyna, who are two agents who have kind of always been pretty good in ranked. I mean, Reyna, as we all are aware, has been a problem in ranked ever since Reyna came out, right? But if you think about what they've done in the past with agents like Phoenix and Reyna, it doesn't look like what they did in patch 11. But now let's go back in time to patch 8.11, where they did make some changes to Reyna, and we can see that they don't really follow that same pattern, right? Where, for instance, here, you've got the healing decreased from 100 to 50, full heal time reduced from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, overheal of armor no longer decays after a timer, so kind of a bit of a mix there, right? The dismiss, the top speed has been increased, but the total duration of it was reduced, and the Empress no longer had a timer. And so this is kind of a mix of, you know, both nerfs and buffs in different kind of ways. But again, the whole point of these changes that they made to Reyna back then was to try and make Reyna a bit better for pro play, whilst maybe making Reyna a little bit worse for ranked, right? And you can see that in the heal changes, right? For healing in, you know, ranked games, in your gold, silver ranked games, healing is a very important deal, right? That will often be the difference between life or death. However, once you get to pro levels, healing matters less because the headshot percentage is just a lot higher, and so you die whether you're at 150 or, you know, 41 or whatever it is, right? It just matters less overall in pro games. And so by nerfing the healing, you know, make Reyna maybe a bit worse in ranked, but it doesn't matter as much for the pro level. But then you also increase the top speed of a dismiss, and again, when you talk about players who obviously have very good movement, like the pro players, that's something that might matter to them, right? Where they can now dismiss and get to areas that they might have not otherwise been able to on the old Reyna. And you can go even further back in time as well to something like patch 5.07, where in this one they changed the Leer, where the wind up of near sight effect was decreased, the range of the restriction on the Leer was completely removed, the near sight unequipped delay was decreased as well, but the duration was also decreased a little bit here, right? So again, kind of like slight nerfs in one area, but buffs in other areas, right? And again, this is during a time when a lot of people were complaining about Reyna being way too good, but yet they were still buffing Reyna in some areas, right? And so you can see that the philosophy of agents like Reyna was, hey, we recognize that Reyna is a bit of a problem in ranked, and so we're going to try and curtail some of those areas, but also we are going to try and buff Reyna in other areas to try and get Reyna to be good in pro play. And of course, when it comes to Phoenix, I mean, this wasn't even that long ago in patch 9.10, where Phoenix, of course, got his kind of full rework, right? Where his curveball was changed to the signature. You know, you got the blaze wall now go through walls, all of that kind of stuff, right? They obviously, back in the day as well, changed the flashes from being quite slow, you know, to being very fast. So fast that, you know, even in pro games, you know, pro players would find it hard to turn Phoenix flashes quite often anytime you saw him, right? So again, that is an agent in Phoenix that has kind of historically always been at least a pretty good pick in ranked. But they were giving Phoenix real buffs, right? Like, really, like, here you go. Here's faster flashes. Here's, you know, more flashes because now it's your signature ability and you always go on for free. Here's a wall that now goes through walls that didn't before, right? Like, just pure, like, straight buffs to Phoenix. Just trying to make him somewhat usable at the highest levels. Because, again, Phoenix, you know, is an agent that you unlock straight away. You don't need to unlock him. You're giving him for free. And he's always been, yeah, pretty decent in ranked. But, of course, these things didn't really work, as we showed. In Masters Toronto, both of those agents only had a 1% pick rate. But as you can see, I do think that the philosophy might have changed somewhat with what we saw in patch 11, where now instead of, like, you know, trying to make these agents be good in pro play, you know, maybe trying to nerf some of their ranked potential, but, you know, buff their pro play potential, I think Riot might have just decided it's time to pull the plug. It's time to just accept that agents like Reyna and Phoenix, they are ranked agents, right? Clove probably fitting into a similar boat as well. They might just have to accept that. And I think at this point, Riot probably is accepting that, you know, maybe these agents will get picked in pro play every so often. But at the end of the day, let's just balance them around ranked, right? They're still going to get picked in ranked. They're still probably going to be pretty popular options because they're aggressive characters that people will enjoy playing and have been playing for a very long time at this point. So their pick rate in ranked will still probably be there. But it just doesn't look like they're ever going to get played in pro because they just fundamentally have some issues when it comes to the highest level. I mean, with Reyna, her main issue is just simply her design does not configure well with how pro games go, right? In pro games, you use your utility to get kills. You don't get kills to then be able to use your utility. And when it comes to Phoenix, he's just too similar to other agents that are just better, right? He's just kind of an initiator, but just worse, right? Like, why would I play Phoenix when I could play KO? Maybe there are slight things like his ult that, you know, give you somewhat of an advantage, but generally it's just not enough because, you know, for instance, when I'm comparing, you know, the Blaze Wall to a nade, I'd prefer KO's nade. When I've got a signature knife that recharges every 40 seconds versus, you know, a hot hands, yeah, I prefer the knife, right? Like, and so there's just some things that just aren't quite there for Phoenix that really ever mean he's likely to get picked because Riot doesn't want to go all in on having, you know, 4 ult orbs on a map that are easily gettable because that would break the game in other ways, right? But that's really, if you were going to design a map for Phoenix, it would be one where you could very easily just farm ult orbs all the time. But as we've kind of seen throughout Valorant's history now, Riot generally is taking an approach, you know, of increasing ult costs, of, you know, making, you know, taking away ult orbs, for instance, on Lotus, right? Just making it harder in general to just completely farm ults. And so I do think from Riot's perspective that this makes sense, right? Patch 11 saying, hey, we're going to just straight up nerf the Leah. We're just going to straight up nerf the curveball. There is no kind of second dimension to that. It is just straight nerfs. I think that they do show a bit of a change in terms of the philosophy of how Riot is approaching these agents, and basically saying that for certain agents, they are ranked agents, right? The truth is, they always were ranked agents, but it seems like Riot has just reached the acceptance stage alongside the rest of us of accepting that to be the case. And I think that overall, that is a good decision, right? Because there's no point in trying to chase, like, hoping that Reyna and Phoenix will get played in pro play, because as we keep adding more and more agents into the game, it becomes obviously less and less likely that's going to happen anyway, right? And so I think just by chasing it, it doesn't really make much sense, and you're better off just actually balancing agents like Reyna, Phoenix, Clove for the parts of the game that they actually will be played in your ranked games, right? And making sure that they aren't ruining your ranked games and feel at least somewhat more fair to play where they're actually getting played. And so that is one philosophy change that we're seeing from Riot, and hopefully they'll change their philosophy on Harbor as well and actually give him a buff.